All right, so in this lesson, we are going to talk about comparing and ordering integers. The essential question for today's lesson is, how do you compare and order positive and negative numbers? And then the objectives for this lesson, after this lesson, I will be able to write statements of order for integers, explain statements of order for integers, interpret statements of order for integers, and understand that statements of inequality are relative to a number's position on the number line. Right? So what this really means is we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about how numbers are greater, less than, equal to each other, and how that relates to the number line. And then you're going to be able to write those statements, or if I give you a statement, you're going to be able to explain it or explain why it works. And then if I give you a statement, you're going to be able to tell me what it means. All right, so comparing positive and negative integers. So here we have the Westfield Soccer League, who ranks its teams using a number called the win-loss combined record. A team with more wins than losses will have a positive combined record, and a team with fewer wins than losses will have a negative combined record. The table shows the total win-loss combined record for each team at the end of the season. Okay, so again, a team with more wins will have a positive number. A team with less wins will have a negative number. So if they have a positive number, they had more wins than losses. If they have a negative, they had more losses than wins. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to, on the number line, graph a point for each team according to its win-loss combined record. So here again, what we have to pay attention to is the teams and then what letter they've been assigned for our number line. So in this case, we have the Sharks. They have been assigned the letter A as their identifier. And the Sharks have a win-loss record of -4. So again, I'd look at 0. To plot these, I would start at 0. -4 tells me that the value is less than 4. So it's going to be to the left of 0. And it's going to be to the left of 0, 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this again is how we plot the numbers. Here we have the Jaguars, who are team B, and they have 3, so 3 above 0, so 3 to the right of 0 as their combined record. The Badgers have a win-loss combined record of -7. The Tigers, who are letter D, have a win-loss record of -8. And the Cougars have a win-loss record of -1. The Hawks have a win-loss record of -5. And then the Wolves have a win-loss record of 7. Okay, so we've plotted all of them on the number line. So our next step is going to be to compare them. So we're going to take a look at which team had the best record in the league and how do we know. So the best record in the league would mean they had more wins than losses. If they had more wins than losses, their number would be positive. So when you have a negative number, no matter what negative number it is, if there is a positive number, then the negative number is smaller. So here's the thing. When you look at a number line, anything that's to the right of a number is bigger, and anything that's to the left is smaller. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about comparing in statements of order. So here we have 0, and everything to the left of 0 is negative, which means everything to the right of 0 is positive and has to be a greater value than everything over here. Right? So what we're comparing here is 3 and 7. So 7 we know is greater than 3 because if you compare them, 3 only has 1, 2, 3 pieces, and 7 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces, making it larger or making them have more. All right, so if you notice, our team with the best league record, so the team with the best league record is the Wolves. Okay? And I can't say I know this because 7 is bigger than 3, or I know this because it's just bigger. We have to explain why we know this. So when we're talking about on a number line, I know this because the 7, which is the number, their win-loss combined record, is the furthest value to the right. And the furthest value to the right on a number line is going to be the largest. So I know this because 7 is the furthest value to the right on the number line, making it the largest. Okay, and the largest record is going to be the best record. Okay, because it's positive, so they have more wins than losses. So now I want you to take a look at C, and I want you to figure out who had the worst record, and then I want you to try to figure out how you know that. Use the answer that we used for B to help you with C. When you come back, you can check your answer. So in this case, what we should have found is that the team with the worst record, so the team with the worst record was the Tigers. I know this because -8 is the furthest, man, I cannot write that word today, furthest number to the left, making it the smallest. All right, so if your answer has something to do with the fact that the -8, which is D, which we know goes with the Tigers, your answer has something to do with the fact that it's the value that's furthest to the left, making it the smallest, you are correct. Okay, so when we're talking about statements of order, it's really reflecting on where it is. Even though we don't talk about it all the time, it's really reflecting on where that value is on the number line. And that value on the number line can really help you determine which one is larger just by looking at left and right. Okay. So then how would you evaluate the Westfield League as a whole? So taking a look at this, I want you to think, what do you think about this league as a whole? So if there's a lot of negative numbers, that means there's a lot of losses. So my thought here would be that this league is not a very good league because there are a lot of teams with a lot of losses. It looks like there's only two good teams within the league, and the rest of them look like they might not be that great. And I know this because the negatives imply that there are a lot of losses. All right, so ordering rational numbers, we're going to graph these on the number line. Okay, and when you plot them on the number line, again, you have to either give your value a letter, a label to represent it. In this case, I can also just make them different colors, or since they're not representing something in particular, I could just plot them. Sometimes it makes it easier, though, to label them even if we're not using them. So my 1, I plotted in blue. My 3, I plotted in purple. My 4, I'm going to plot in red. My 2, I'm going to plot in, ooh, that green looks pretty. We'll use green. My 5, I'm plotting in pink because I'm running out of colors over here. And my -1, I'm going to plot in orange. All right, so again, to figure out, we're going to list the numbers in order from least to greatest. So the number that is the least is going to be the number that's furthest to the left. So if we use a number line, what we can do is we can just look at the numbers and we can write them based on the number line. Now we can't do it from here, our list of numbers, we have to do it based on the number line. If I do it based on the number line, I can just read from left to right and write my numbers. So -1 would be the smallest, and 1 would be the next, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. All right. If you're not using a number line, you have to think of how much of something you have. And a really good way to help students with this is money. So somebody who has $5 has more than somebody who has $4. Somebody who has 4 has more than 3, and so on and so forth. But now with negatives, here's what you have to think, because it's 1 and 1. However, the person that has $1 has more money, so this is money in their pocket. The negative means that you owe $1. So even though this person, they have a 1 and a 1, so even though they're opposites, since this is negative, this person owes somebody $1. So when they get money back, let's say that they go and they do a job and they earn $1 for it. Well, they have to get rid of that dollar right away to pay somebody back, and then they have $0. Whereas if this person went out and they earned $1, they would get to add that to the one they already have, and they would have $2. All right, so that's kind of how it helps me to think of negative numbers. So which number is the third least? So again, we can look on the number line and count. So this is the first least, second, third. So the third least would be 2. Or we can look at our list and count 1, 2, 3. And which number is the second greatest? Well, the second greatest is going to be the one that's not all the way to the right, but the one that is the next closest to it. So in this case, the second greatest would be 4. Okay. So again, you can use number lines to help you out. You can use, after you've written the number line or after you've written your order, you can use that to help you out. Or you can think of it in terms of money. That helps out students a lot when they're first learning about ordering with negative numbers. All right, so now, even though these numbers have decimals, we're still going to talk about it just to kind of get our practice in with decimals. So we have 5 and 6 tenths. So 5 and 6 tenths is bigger than 5, but smaller than 6. So 5 and 6 tenths is going to be between 5 and 6, and it's more than 5.5, so it should be closer to 6. Then we have negative 8. Negative 8 is going to be right on the hash mark. And then we have 3 and 1/10. Now again, 3 and 1/10 means that we have a little bit more than 3, but not even quite halfway. So I mean, we can't be right on top of the 3, but we can be next to it. And then we have negative 4. And then we have 7. And then we have negative 2. Okay, so even though we have decimals, we still graph the numbers on the number line. Since we don't have the number line broken down into decimals, we couldn't do it perfectly. We did our best, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to list the numbers in order from least to greatest. The idea is still the same. You're still working your way from left to right. So negative 8 is still going to be our smallest. The next smallest is the negative 4, because that's the one that comes next when we go towards the right. Okay, so as we go to the right of the number line, on the number line, the numbers get larger in value. And then we have negative 2. So I know it's weird that negative 2 is bigger than negative 4, but you have to think, somebody that owes $4 has more money than somebody who owes $2. Then our next largest is going to be 3 and 1/10. And then our next is going to be 5 and 6/10. And then our next and largest number would be 7. So just because we have decimals added into this doesn't mean that the process changes at all. It just means that our numbers now have decimals, and we have to look a little bit more closely. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to try this problem on your own. Okay, so I want you to plot them. And then after you plot them, I want you to order them from least to greatest. And when you come back, we'll check your answer. All right, so you should have found here that your smallest was negative 14. Your next smallest was -8, and then -7, and then -2, and then 1, and then 5, and then, excuse me, 11, 12, and 18. All right. In a given list of numbers, the greatest number is negative. What can you say about the numbers on the list? Right? So if the greatest number is a negative number, that means that, so if you think about it, if the largest number is negative, that means there can't be anything to the right of it. So that means even if the number is -1, no other number that is positive can be on there because nothing to the right. So if -1, that I would plot right here, if that was my greatest number, nothing to the right side of it could be on that list because they would all have to be larger. So what we can say is that every other number in the list is negative. All right, so now we're going to take those statements of order or ordering numbers from least to greatest and greatest to least. We're going to take that and we're going to turn it into what's called an inequality. Right? And from your vocabulary, you should know that an inequality is a statement that compares two values. So on December 18th, the high temperature in Portland, Oregon was 42 degrees Fahrenheit. On January 18th, the high temperature was 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Which day was warmer? So again, we can use our number line and we can graph the numbers. So we have 42 degrees, which is positive. And then we also have 28 degrees, which is also positive. Now again, when you're looking at your, excuse me, your number line, the number that is furthest to the left is the smaller number. So if the number is smaller, in this case with temperature, it means it was colder. So to answer our question, which day was warmer, we need to know that December 18th, I had that backwards. So December 18th was a warmer day than January 18th. Okay, and I know that because 42 is larger than 28, which means it was warmer. And I know that because it's further to the right. So I also can look at this and say 42 is to the right of 28 on the number line. That means that 42 is, if you chose greater than 28, you are correct. So now we're going to use an inequality to finish this statement. So I have 42 and then I have a space and I have 28. I need to use one of my two symbols. I need to either use less than or I need to use greater than. I always know which one less than is because it looks like a tipped L. So if I take my left hand, make my L, and tip it, that shows you the direction of the less than symbol. So now if I look here, I see that 42, I decided this means 42 is greater than 28. So that tells me I should actually use the greater than symbol. So 42 is greater than 28. So negative numbers are blank than positive numbers. So comparing wise, we know that negative numbers are, if you said smaller than positive numbers, you'd be correct. But then I also know that 0, even though it doesn't have a positive or a negative, 0 is actually going to be larger than all negative numbers. So even though 0, when we've been talking about it throughout elementary school, even though that was the smallest, now that we have negative numbers, it's actually bigger than something. All right, so here I want you to go ahead and give it a shot and look at the question. Okay, so it says 28 is to the left of 42 on the number line. This means that 28 is, if you said less than 42, you would be correct. So then now I can fill this out and say since 28 is less than 42, I can complete the inequality by using a less than symbol. And look at this, I'm even going to type that less than symbol. That'll show you how much I use this. Look at that. So 28 is less than 42. So since 28 is less than 42 and 42 is greater than 28, I know, and let me pull the problem back up here just in case. I know that whatever day was 28 degrees is the cooler day, but I want the warmer day, which we said was on December 18th, the 42 degrees. So the temperature was warmer on December 18th. Notice that when I wrote my answer as a sentence, I restated the question in my answer. I didn't just put December 18th, I wrote a complete sentence. All right, so now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try these three here on your own, and I'd like you to try to do it without using the number line. When you come back, we'll check your answer. All right, so here you should have found that negative 10 is actually less than negative 2. Okay, if you're struggling with that, just remember when it's negative, so if you owe somebody $10 and your friend owes somebody $2, it's going to take them less time to get out of debt than it will you. So here I have 6 and negative 6, and I always know that the negative number is going to be smaller than the positive number. Now here I have negative 7 and negative 8. This is where it gets really weird because negative 7 is actually greater than negative 8. So think temperature-wise. If it's negative 8 degrees outside, it's colder than if it were negative 7 degrees outside. Writing two inequalities to compare negative 2 and 18. So this really all depends on the order in which you write your numbers. So if I write negative 2 first and then I write 18, I have to think negative 2 is less than 18. So I would have to use the less than symbol. However, I could also compare by listing the 18 first and then the negative 2. In doing that, I know that 18 is greater than negative 2. These two statements still give the same idea about the value, but they're saying it in two different ways. It's saying it's comparing by looking at the negative 2, and it's saying negative 2 is smaller than 18. The second one compares it by focusing on the 18, saying that it's bigger than the negative 2. So now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try this one on your own, and when you come back, we'll check your answer. So here you should have gotten that 39 is greater than negative 39, and the other one would have been that negative 39 is less than 39. Is there a greatest positive integer? If so, what is it? And if not, why not? All right, well, when you think about numbers, we have to remember that numbers go on forever. Since numbers go on forever, there really can't be a largest integer. All right, because they go on forever. So you could never really pick the largest number. So what is the least non-negative number? So if we're looking at non-negative and we're looking for the smallest non-negative number, which one would be the smallest? And we're just going to focus on integers here. The smallest non-negative number would be 0, because 0 is not positive and it's not negative. All right, so I want you to go ahead and take a look at this one. And I want you to try it on your own. When you come back, we'll check your answer. All right, if you got an answer of C, you would be correct. Okay, so here, negative 1 is not smaller than negative 4. Up here, negative 8/10 is not, it is smaller than 1 2/10, but 1 2/10 is not smaller than negative 19. Okay, so you have to really focus on those negatives. It's weird. It's like when you have negatives, that bigger number in the positive world is actually going to end up being the smaller number. All right, and then here we're looking at how do you compare and order positive numbers? All right, so this is your essential question. This is for you to answer. So how do you compare and order positive and negative numbers? Okay, and the other questions that you are going to answer are your guided practice problems. Right, so you have these problems here. You're going to use some inequality symbols. You're going to write numbers in order from least to greatest. Okay, and I'd like you to try to do it without using the number line when you can. And then down here, you're going to explain how you can use that number line to place your orders from least to greatest or greatest to least. All right, as always, if you have any questions, please be sure to email me or write them down so we can go over them in class.